just to summarize where we are up to, we now up to the within prayer. We're at the Amida, which is the height of the prayer. When we are face to face with Hashem, we spoke about timing. Sorry, just a moment. We spoke about timing. We spoke about how to start, how to concentrate, how we should position ourselves, how loud we should daven, more about positioning, about not being disturbed or yawning. And finally, we spoke in section 10 about facing towards Israel and towards Jerusalem and towards the temple. And now that brings us on to the next section, which is we're going to speak about bowing in the Amida. And we're going to speak about finishing the Amida, concluding the Amida, and then finally about if there are any other types of disturbances. Sorry, just a moment. Okay. Okay, so here we are. So as far as bowing is concerned, so I mean, bowing today might sound somewhat archaic, and that's for good reason, because we don't have a king. We don't have a king of blood and flesh today, and so therefore it wouldn't seem appropriate to bow. In general, the concept of a king who's in charge doesn't seem to sit well with modern civilization. You know, today we celebrate liberalism and democracy and everybody having their own equal authority and rights within everything. And that's something we certainly should celebrate. The Torah's perspective of a king would be somebody whose entire being was dedicated to his people. But at the same time, he was king, meaning he was above them. And the people would dedicate themselves towards the king. In other words, authority. Is authority a good thing or a bad thing? Today in America, the whole debate surrounding Black Lives Matter and the movement to defund the police, and the anti-movement, and this movement and that movement. But a big question is authority and imposing authority. And really, one key criteria is what is the nature of that authority? If the nature of that authority is one that can abuse those that are under its authority, then it's a bad thing. If the nature of that authority is one that uplifts and raises and supports those that are under that authority, then that authority becomes a good thing. And certainly when we speak about even a fleshly king in the context of the Torah, we speak about a king who was a tremendously good authority that looked after the people in an incredible way. And under such authority, it would be appropriate to show respect by bowing down towards the king. Now, for us Jews, we have a very big authority. The King of all kings, God Almighty, who rules and is in charge of the entire world. And so when we approach him and we stand opposite him face to face, and we connect with the essence of God from the essence of our being, in that very intimate moment, it is appropriate that we show that we are servants before Hashem. He is the authority, he is in charge, and we subjugate ourselves towards him. And we do so by bowing. We bow a total of 4 times, as we'll see in a moment, both twice at the beginning and end of the first blessing of the Amida, and twice at the beginning and end of the second to the last blessing of the Amida. We start the Amida by bowing as we acknowledge Hashem's greatness, and we bow towards the end of the Amida when we thank Hashem for everything that he has given us. Let's see it inside. So one should bow one's knees 4 times during the Amida, at the beginning of the first blessing, and at its conclusion, and at the bracha of Moedim, which is the second to the last blessing, when we say Moedim anachnu lach. that we admit ourselves to you, we thank you. In Hebrew, modim, it means both to admit oneself to something and to thank. And they're obviously very much related. It's acknowledging what somebody does for oneself. And in this instance, it's thanking and submitting ourselves towards Hashem. We start modim v'nachtolach, we submit ourselves to you, Hashem. And that same blessing ends over the page with Baruch atah Hashem, hatov shimcha l'cha na'eh lahodot. There's different versions within the Siddur, but the general meaning of that prayer is that blessed are you, Hashem, who it is pleasant to praise and to thank. And as we thank Hashem, we bow once again. Those are the 4 times, twice at the beginning, twice at the end. And then one final bow when we take 3 steps back. Now, how exactly do we bow? I didn't get a chance to look up the deeper meaning, why it is in exactly this way, but on a basic level, this is how a person would subjugate oneself and show respect and submit oneself to a higher authority, and in this instance, it's Hashem. When saying Baruch, we bend our knees, and when saying the next word of the blessing, Atah, so Baruch, blessed, we bend our knees, Atah is you. And as we say you, Hashem, we bow our body forward. So to illustrate, I don't know if you can see my feet right now, but if I just stand a little higher, that's not going to work. But step 2 is to bow like that, where one bows one body forward, so that actually the vertebrae in one's spinal cord actually protrudes. As I bend forward right now, I feel that in my back, tilting one's head forward as well. That is how one bows before Hashem. But before pronouncing the word Hashem, the powerful name of Hashem, we straighten up slowly. As it says, Hashem straightens the bend. And we illustrate that the way we stand back up before we mention Hashem's name. So again, it's Baruch, kneel, Atah, bend, stand back up, and then say Hashem's name. The same thing goes at the end of davening. Similarly, when saying modim, bend, and bow, and before saying Hashem's name, modim v'nachtolach Hashem, Hashem's name, one should straighten up. So not bend too low so that your mouth is opposite your belt, because this is an act of ostentation, meaning if you're going to show that you are so pious in your bowing that you're really bowing all the way down, then you've obviously missed the point. For an old person or somebody who has a difficult time or is sick, then who it's hard to bend one's knees, one could just nod the head, and that already counts as a bow. One can only bow 5 times, no more times. This relates to what we said earlier. Just like we said, one is not allowed to stand up in order to say the Shema, because the sages, who were very spiritually in tune, advised us of exactly what's necessary. So similarly, when it comes to bowing, the sages instituted a total of 5 bowings, and if one was to bow any more, it would be implying that one has a better understanding or smarter than the sages, undermining the sages, and therefore we bow 5 times, no less and no more. So when we mentioned if somebody bows too much, then it becomes ostentatious. So there's a story of a community where they wanted to exercise how they were a very humble community. And so they had the practice that they would walk around the bimah, or the rabbi would walk around the bimah, and the prestigious members of the community would walk around the bimah, and in a very bent over posture, they would say, Ich bin a garnished, ich bin a garnished, ich bin a garnished, I'm a nothing, I'm a nothing, I'm a nothing. Anyhow, one of the simpleton of the shul sees this happening, and he decides to join in, and so he goes behind the rabbi and the president and all the other prestigious members of the community, and he also bends over and he says, Ich bin a garnished, I'm a nothing. And the chairman turns around, whoever it was, somebody turns around to him and says, since when have you also become a garnish? Since when have you also become a nothing? Obviously, as much as they were saying they were nothing, they were actually saying quite the opposite. They were exercising their humility in a way that was rather arrogant. And this is relevant to the Amida. If a person overbows to Hashem, then he's doing precisely the opposite. Okay, now let's talk about the end of the davening. At the very end of the 18 blessings, there are actually 19 blessings in total, but each blessing starts or I should say at least ends with Baruch Atah Hashem, after we've done all of those 90 blessings, the 19th blessing being one of peace. This isn't a prayer class per se, so we're not getting an opportunity to go into the meaning of all the prayers, but the final of the 19 blessings is one that speaks about peace. Sim Shalom, or Shalom Rav. And we end that with Baruch Atah Hashem Avavarech et Amo Yisrael Bashalom. Blessed are you, Hashem, who blesses his people with peace. And then there's another little passage that's added in, which is called Elokai Natsar. Hashem, please protect my tongue from bad, and my lips from saying crooked things. And anybody that thinks badly about me should be banished. It's a beautiful prayer. There's actually two ways. It's somewhat ambiguous. It has two meanings. I don't have a chance to pull up the prayer in front of me right now, but it says, and all evil thoughts about me should banish. And that could be understood in two ways. Either it would be understood that people that are instigating negative thoughts about me should be, such thoughts should be banished, which already is saying not that the person should be banished, but that the thoughts should be banished. Or it could be understood that I'm talking about myself. Hashem, bad thoughts come up in me as well. And so Hashem, please help me banish inappropriate thoughts from my mind. And I've always thought it's beautiful how in the same words, there are those two meanings, both towards others' thoughts towards me and my thoughts towards others. And we can have them both in mind when we say that final prayer. Now, this isn't part of the formal Amida that was originally instituted by the men of the Great Assembly, such as Mordechai. It was added afterwards, and it's as opposed to the rest of the Amida, which are blessings, acknowledging Hashem's greatness and speaking about Hashem providing our needs in different areas. This is somewhat of a more concluding prayer, asking Hashem to look after us. So before we begin this final section, we've already concluded all 19 blessings, and therefore this final section is a level down as far as the severity of the Amida, as we will now see. When it comes to this final paragraph, there is room for more interruption than what would be allowed for the rest of the Amida. And this could be particularly relevant if you're davening the Amida and it's taking you a while, and the Chazan has already moved on with the prayers, whether it be repeating the Amida or whatnot, and you would want to know, can you participate? So he's now going to discuss that. So after the Shmona Esrei, meaning the 18 or 19 blessings, recite the prayer Elokai Natsar. And before saying Oseh Shalom, which comes right at the end, Oseh Shalom b'mrama, Oseh Shalom, bow, take 3 steps backwards. So there's actually a total of 5 bows, 2 at the beginning, 2 at the second to the last blessing where we thank Hashem, and 1 final bow, which is as we finish the Amida, we actually just bow, and while we bowed, we take 3 steps back while in a position of big bow. And that is actually the appropriate way of a servant to depart, or of a servant to depart from his master. We're standing in front of the King of Kings, and as we are dismissing ourselves from before Hashem, we bow slightly and take 3 steps back. These steps should be of average size. Again, we don't want to be caught up in ourselves. We want it to be most appropriate for the king before whom we stand, meaning that it should be at least toe to the heel, meaning actual steps, but not too large steps, which would again show arrogance. It's specifically 3 steps. We start with our left foot and then the right. Why? Because generally when you're running, you start with the stronger foot, meaning we said in Judaism at the beginning of the Amida, we said that we always want to start on the stronger side. Whenever we're doing a mitzvah, doing anything, we like to start with the right. We're now about to depart from Hashem. So we're sad to leave. There's nothing wrong. We have responsibilities. We can't spend all day in prayer. It's not Yom Kippur. But nonetheless, it's something that does not come easy. And so therefore we specifically start by taking 3 steps back with our left foot to show that this is something that we actually don't want to step away from. It's something that's We want to stay in Hashem's presence in this state of being for as long as we could. So left foot, then right foot, then left foot, and all while still bowed, we then turn our face to the left, which is the right of Hashem, because he's looking at us, he's right in front of us. So my left right now, I just move to the left, and to you it's my right. And so it is when we're standing in front of Hashem. And we say Aseh Shalom Bibravav, then to the right, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu, and then forward, Val Kol Yisrael Bibru Amen. And then we say a final prayer. Yehi Ratzon B'Ufanecha May it be your will, Hashem, Sheyibana Beis Hamikdash, that you rebuild the temple. And those are the final words of our Amida. Why are we mentioning it? Because really, what is davening about? It's about coming close to Hashem. As long as the temple has been destroyed and we've been dispersed from Israel, we miss that experience. Hashem is not present in a time of exile in a way that we could feel him and we could see him. When Mashiach comes, we will be able to see Hashem, and we will be able to have a whole new experience of a relationship. In fact, the sages describe the time of exile as divorce. That Hashem has divorced his people, and when Mashiach comes, he remarries us, or as an engagement and a marriage. And so we've just finished our most intimate moments with Hashem, where we've tried to connect with him. But at the same time, we feel that there's so much that we're missing. We don't have the temple. What was unique about the temple? More than being a magnificent building, it was a place where Hashem was felt. It was a place where we were able to really connect with Hashem on a whole new level. And so as we finish our meeting with Hashem, we daven for the rebuilding of the temple so that we'll actually be able to serve him again in the temple on that whole new level. And that's how we end the davening, that we should be able to, that the temple should be rebuilt speedily in our days. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, we spoke about why we start with the left foot. And we said, therefore, a left-footed person would actually start by taking his right foot back, because that's his weaker foot. So again, he's showing that he doesn't want to leave. So that is as far as how we conclude the 3 steps. Let's put in one more, number 13. At the place where your 3 steps end, stay standing with your feet together, as if you were still davening, without starting to turn around. He says the west, but he means really to turn around, because the author lived to the east of Jerusalem, or to the west of Jerusalem, which means that he faced the east. And don't go back to your place until the chazan gets up to the repetition of the Amida and says Kedusha. Or even if you're davening by yourself, as we all are at the moment at home, one should remain standing there for a certain amount of time. He says the same length of time. Actually, the Shulchan Aruch, he brings different opinions, but at the very least, you should wait a couple of seconds after taking 3 steps back before taking 3 steps forward again, or moving about one's day. If it's difficult, then you could return sooner, meaning that you'd be able to already return to your place at the beginning of the repetition of the Amidah. The reason for this is, if the moment we take 3 steps back, we run off to check our WhatsApp to see if maybe somebody might have messaged us, then it shows how much we're interested in the prayers, because our mind is elsewhere. But just when we've already taken the 3 steps back, and legally speaking, we're now licensed to be able to run off and do our thing, when we don't, that's the moment that says, Hashem, I want to just stick around just another moment. I want to stay with you as long as I can. Hashem is always with us, but I want to have this experience of closeness. Thanks for joining us. And tonight is Rosh Chodesh. It's a special day, the beginning of a new month. So remember to add the additions for that in your evening prayers tonight. Wishing you a wonderful evening, and look forward to